Village is an architectural review district, so we have a German Village Commission. So anyone that lives down here in the district and wants to make changes to the exterior of their property has to get a certificate of appropriateness from the commission to do so. So I sort of help residents in the district sort of walk through that application process and let them know what generally is approved and what isn't. A lot of people are a little bit leery of the commission process because they don't really understand it, and they're not, they're unfamiliar with having to get permission to say like paint their shutters or something. I think people have this idea of like, well, it's too difficult to live down there, you can't get anything by the commission, and that's just not true. The vast majority of the people that live here are really happy with the commission and happy that they're sort of in place helping the historic properties sort of maintain their integrity. We're one of the oldest neighborhoods in Columbus. We're the oldest historic district in Columbus, and we're a huge tourist attraction because of that. So while it's always important to hold on to the history when you can, it especially is because it brings people into the neighborhood and into Columbus and really sort of benefits the city as a whole, that people come in large tour groups to visit German Village, and they come to our House and Garden tour and Oktoberfest because they know that we're sort of a different kind of neighborhood. The area first was settled beginning in around the 1840s by German immigrants. They mostly came from the Rhineland, which is in the southwest sort of corner of Germany. And that was a huge period of immigration in general from Europe and particularly Germany. But so they settled here in Columbus. It was a brand new city at the time, and that was really appealing to the immigrants that came here because they didn't want to be somewhere that was sort of already established. They wanted to kind of like get a fresh start and do things their own way, and so this was a really good spot for that. It was also really easy to get here because of the National Road and the canal system. So it was just it was a good equation for how they ended up here. And so they built the buildings, they built churches and schools, they spoke German at all the different businesses and in schools and stuff. And the area really thrived. There were so many Germans in Columbus. At one point, I think by the 1860s, a third of Columbus was German. So there were so many that they were a really strong sort of political bloc and social group. They had different athletic clubs and stuff. And they were thriving until the early 20th century when World War I began, Prohibition and the Depression. World War I, everyone was sort of anti-German during World War I because we were fighting Germany there, and people were sort of unsure where the loyalties were of German Americans. So that was kind of like the first strike against them, and Prohibition hurt because so many Germans were involved in the brewery businesses here in Columbus. And so when they either shut down or had to fire nearly everyone because they were making soda instead of beer, that certainly was sort of strike two, and then the Depression, kind of everything was downhill from there. But so the area went into some pretty serious decline. Some people referred to it as a slum through the 30s and 40s. And in the 50s, when Interstate 70 was built, a third of the neighborhood was demolished in order to make way for the interstate and different new buildings downtown. A lot of people just moved out. At that period of time, too, a lot of people were moving to suburbs anyway. And, German girls weren't necessarily marrying German guys anymore. That had sort of not gone out of fashion. But, yeah, it just times were changing. So, it was, I imagine, a really kind of quiet neighborhood because not all that many people were here. And so that's why it was so attractive for the city to say, hey, if we're going to demolish anything, let's go where the buildings are old and not many people are living. And people moved in because they didn't want them demolished. And it was then that some people that were really sort of invested in the community were kind of like, well, hold on, these buildings still absolutely have some life left to them. They just need a little TLC. And so in 1960, the society was established. And excuse me, and their focus was really on sort of creating this old world type of neighborhood. And since then, it's really kind of progressed to really focusing on the history and not really, they weren't trying to create an old world type neighborhood, but they were just interested in sprucing up the buildings. And now that's already been done. So the focus now is on doing it historically correct and appropriately, as opposed to putting a coat of paint on and calling it a day. There was a period of time, maybe a decade, where property values in Columbus went up 100%, and in German Village they went up like 480%. So, and it really is because of the restoration work and the preservation work. And so people appreciate that. They like, making money on their property here and knowing that it's a secure neighborhood to invest in. Last year we were named a Preserve America community. The First Lady hand picks those communities that are, or neighborhood, Preserve America neighborhood. There are Preserve America communities, which are generally larger cities. And then a new program that was started, I think in 05 or 06, is the Preserve America Neighborhood Program. And those are for large neighborhoods within larger cities. So, so yeah, that's another, it's a White House initiative and the Advisory Council on Historic Preservation. And we were able to apply for that because we're on the National Register. So now we're eligible for grant funding that maybe not necessarily other communities are. So, so yeah, it's a really good sort of stepping stone to other things. A lot of people move here because you have sort of an urban lifestyle. Things are close, that there is noise, that there are places to go, and that people are sort of always out and about. I mean, surely not everyone likes that. Some of the people that have been here the longest really do like to think of it as more of a quiet neighborhood, but we're a downtown Columbus neighborhood. Schiller Park and Frank Fetch Park are, I mean, they're beautiful. They're awesome parks. I go to the Mohawk, the old Mohawk a lot, down on Mohawk and Kossuth, and it's just sort of a neighborhood pub, bar, restaurant. I mean, it's, you know, it's a fun place. The Mojo Lounge is moving into the Cup of Joe that's here in German Village. So I think in the next couple months, a lot of people will want to be down there for that. And then as far as fine dining goes, I mean, we have a ridiculous amount of award-winning restaurants down here between Lindy's and G. Michael's in Barcelona. So I don't know, there's a lot of options when you're coming to hang out down here. As far as people looking to do hands-on restoration and preservation work, we might be past that. A lot of the buildings have already been renovated because we've sort of been ahead of the curve as far as other Columbus neighborhoods go. But as far as urban neighborhoods with a good mix of residential and commercial properties, I still think that we're at our peak.